Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal.
Have you ever looked at your marriage and thought, this is not what I signed up for? And it's not because you don't love him, and it's not because you want out, but because you're tired. You're tired of overthinking every word. You're tired of wondering how something so small turned into something so big. And you're tired of carrying the emotional weight for both of you. And maybe the hardest part, you understand trauma. You understand why he reacts the way he does. You understand that it's about what happened to him, but you're still exhausted. If that is you, I want you to stay with me because this recap episode is pulling together the most powerful moments from our 3-part series on trauma and marriage. We talked about why you're so tired and why it makes sense, why everything can feel so personal, even when it isn't, how to tell the difference between a bear and a stump, and how to use the powerful pause before things spiral. But here's what I really want you to stay to the end, because I'm replaying a powerful portion of my conversation with Dr. Kelly Flanagan, where we get real about something that we don't talk about enough: how hard this is on you. Dr. Kelly Flanagan is a licensed clinical psychologist and relationship coach with more than 2 decades of experience helping couples navigate the hardest part of connection. He's been featured in the 5 Love Languages, the Today Show, Reader's Digest, HuffPost, and Success Magazine. His newest book is coming out, The Road Less Triggered, and it's about exactly what we're unpacking in this series: how couples can stop reacting from old wounds and start choosing connection. But what really made my conversation with him wasn't just his credentials, it was his honesty. He gets real about how hard this work is, how staying open requires skill and not just heart, and how much it costs a wife who is supporting someone in trauma recovery. So today I'm replaying the clips that matter the most, the ones I really want you to hear, the ones that shift how you see your marriage, and the ones that will remind you it's not you, it's not him, it is about the past, and there is a way forward. So let's jump right in. Someone who carries childhood trauma, there's a very specific kind of exhaustion that's hard to explain to anyone else. You guys, it's not just being tired. It's the mental exhaustion of constantly thinking, the emotional exhaustion of monitoring your tone, timing, and mood, the nervous system exhaustion of always wondering what might set things off. And the hardest part is this: you weren't prepared for this version of marriage. No one told you that loving someone with trauma could mean walking on eggshells in your own home. No one prepared you for how lonely it can feel to love so deeply and yet still feel so disconnected. And no one warned you that you might slowly lose pieces of yourself trying to keep everything from falling apart. If this resonates, I want you to hear this right away. You are not weak. You are not failing. And you are not imagining how heavy this feels. So today's episode isn't about fixing your partner, and it's not really about blaming trauma either. This episode is about you, about naming the invisible load that you've been carrying, and about how understanding why you feel so exhausted, even when you're doing everything you know how to do. And you guys, this is only part 1 of a 3-part series where we're going to get honest about trauma, marriage, and what it takes to find your way back to connection without losing yourself in the process. And I'm so excited because this series is going to culminate in a powerful conversation with Dr. Kelly Flanagan. He's a clinical psychologist whose work has helped so many couples understand why they get triggered and how to find their way back to each other. And he has a brand new book coming out I am so excited about. It's called The Road Less Triggered, and it's coming out this month. So in our interview, we're going to talk deeply about trauma, nervous systems, and what actually helps couples move from protection back into connection. But before we get there, you guys, we have to start here. Because before anything can change, you need language for what you're living in. Okay, so let's take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop if you can. You don't need to solve anything today. You just need to feel seen. All right, let's talk about why you're so tired. And let's talk about the exhaustion itself. Because most people, they hear the word tired and think you just need to rest, a small nap, a weekend away, maybe better boundaries. But this kind of exhaustion doesn't really go away with sleep. And you know it if you're in it. This is the exhaustion that comes from always being on, always watching, always adjusting, always trying to stay one step ahead of the next reaction. It's the exhaustion of scanning the room when your spouse walks in and immediately asking yourself, what version am I getting right now? It's the exhaustion of thinking through how to say or whether to say it at all because you don't know how it will land today. And over time, without you even realizing it, you're starting to organize your life around emotional safety. You choose your words carefully, you manage the timing of conversations, you avoid certain topics, and you shrink parts of yourself to keep the peace. And you guys, it's not because you're weak. It's not because you're passive. It's because you're trying to survive the relationship without blowing it up. And here's another part that often goes very unnoticed. It's the kind of exhaustion where you know you should get outside. You know it would probably help to see your friends. You know fresh air, laughter, movement, all the things that people suggest should be done. And yet you just can't make yourself go. And it's not because you don't want connection, but because every connection feels like effort now because your system is already maxed out. Because the idea of being on for anyone else, even the people you love, feels really overwhelming. So you cancel, or you don't respond, or you tell yourself, maybe next time. And then you start to feel guilty for that as well, because you're not just managing their emotions, you're managing your own response to their emotions. You're calming yourself down, talking yourself out of reacting, telling yourself to be patient again. And that takes an enormous amount of energy. And when this goes on long enough, your body starts to carry it. You might notice you're tense even when things are fine. You feel emotionally numb or disconnected. You're irritable, foggy, or just depleted. Or you just don't recognize yourself anymore. And this isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because your nervous system has been living on high alert for a very long time. And the hardest part, most people around you don't see it. They see your spouse's good side. They see how hard you're trying. They tell you to communicate better or to be more patient or to stop overthinking. But what they don't see is that invisible labor, the emotional load, the constant self-regulation, the way you're holding both yourself and the relationship together. Anyone would be exhausted living like this. And if no one has said that to you yet, let me say this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. There's another layer to this exhaustion that we don't talk about enough, and it's grief. Because somewhere along the way, you realized this isn't the marriage you thought you were building. When you said yes, you probably imagined partnership, mutual support, a sense that you'd be carrying life together. You expected hard seasons because all marriages have them, but you didn't expect to feel this emotional weight that lands mostly on you. You didn't expect to feel like you'd have to be the steady one all the time, the regulated one, the one who thinks ahead, de-escalates, and absorbs the impact. Because when trauma is part of the picture, the rules quietly change. Suddenly, things that feel small to you feel huge to them. Normal stressors become threats. Everyday disagreements, they feel dangerous, not logically, but in the body. So instead of relating as two equals navigating life, you start compensating. You adjust, you anticipate, you carry more than your share, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. And at first, it feels loving. It feels like understanding, like compassion, like commitment. But over time, something shifts. You start to notice that your needs get postponed. Your feelings get minimized, even by you. Your voice gets quieter because it feels safer that way. And this is where the confusion really sets in because you love them. You understand their story. You see their pain. You feel their pain. So you tell yourself, it shouldn't feel this way. They've been through so much. I definitely don't want to make things worse. And yet, you feel lonely. You feel unseen. You feel like there's no room for your pain in the relationship. And that internal tug of war is exhausting. Loving someone deeply while grieving what you thought marriage would be creates a kind of sadness that's hard to name. It's not that you want out, it's that you want in a way that feels mutual and safe for both of you. And here's something really important I want you to hear. Feeling this grief doesn't mean you're ungrateful, and it doesn't mean you're selfish, and it doesn't mean you don't love your spouse enough. It means your heart knows something matters here. And when expectations and reality don't line up, it's okay to acknowledge the loss, even if you're still committed. Because ignoring that grief doesn't make it go away. It just drives it underground, where it turns into resentment, numbness, and burnout. And that, I promise you, is not where you want to live. To really understand why this dynamic feels so intense, we have to talk about trauma, not as a diagnosis or a label, but as a nervous system reality. Because trauma doesn't live in memory alone, it lives in the body. When your spouse reacts strongly, when he shuts down, gets angry, controlling, defensive, or distant, it doesn't just feel confusing. It really feels like it's about you. It feels like you said something wrong or chose wrong timing or should have known better by now. But over time, these moments, they really start to chip away at your confidence. You start second guessing yourself. You replay these conversations. You wonder if you're the problem. And I want to share a quick story that might sound painfully familiar. I had a client who was at work one day and she texted her husband asking a simple question about the kids, where they were and what they were doing. He responded that he wasn't really sure where they were at the moment. So she asked a few follow-up questions, just not aggressively, not critically, just curiosity. And his response, he told her he just couldn't take her drama anymore. If you're married to a trauma survivor, that moment might feel all too familiar because suddenly what you were experiencing as curiosity, what you meant as care or responsibility, was received by him as an attack, as if you were saying he was a horrible father, as if you were criticizing his competence, as if you were questioning his worth. And then the reaction gets directed towards you. The tone shifts, the energy shifts, and before you know it, you're the one questioning yourself. Was I asking too much? Did I word that wrong? Should I have just let it go? And that part, that is what does the most damage. Not just the reaction, but how quickly you turn it inward.
So before we go any further, I want to say this so clearly, and I'm going to keep saying it because it matters. It's not you, and it's not really about him. It's about what happened to him. So today's episode isn't about blaming trauma, and it's not about excusing harmful behavior. It's about understanding what's happening inside his nervous system in those moments so that you can stop internalizing reactions that were never actually about you. Because when you don't understand triggers, you end up taking responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. And my hope is that by the end of this episode, you'll be able to look at moments like that with more clarity and a lot less self-doubt. So take a breath with me. You don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need the perfect response. Let's just talk about what's really happening when he gets triggered and why it feels so personal even when it's not. Now let's talk about why these moments so often end with you questioning yourself. Because when your spouse gets triggered, the reaction is usually directed outward. The tone sharpens, the words come out sideways, and suddenly you're on the receiving end of frustration, blame, or shutdown. And even if you know logically that you didn't mean any harm, something subtle happens inside you. You start searching for what you did wrong. You replay the conversation. You analyze your tone. You wonder if you should have waited or said it differently, and worse, not said anything at all. And that makes sense because we as humans, we are wired to look for cause and effect. If something went wrong, I must have caused it. But when trauma is involved, there's something much deeper happening underneath the reaction. Many trauma survivors, they grew up in environments where mistakes were dangerous, very dangerous, where being questioned meant punishment, being misunderstood meant shame, being curious meant conflict, and being imperfect meant rejection. Some grew up being blamed for things they didn't do. Others were made responsible for adults' emotions. Some were constantly criticized, compared, or told they were too much or not enough. And over time, their nervous systems learned a very painful lesson. If something goes wrong, it must be my fault. So guilt, it becomes automatic. Shame becomes familiar. And defensiveness, you guys, becomes protection. Because when guilt and shame show up in the body, they hurt. And the fastest way to escape that pain, you guys, is to push it away. And that's why the defensiveness often comes out first. And it's not because your spouse wants to attack you, but because his body is trying to get out of the unbearable feeling of I'm bad or I failed. And this is where the CPTSD translator becomes so helpful, because what you say and what they hear are often very different things. For example, when you say something like, hey, do you know where the kids are right now? What they hear is, you're irresponsible, you're failing, you're not doing a good job. If you say, hey, I was just checking in, what they hear is, you're being watched and you're about to get into trouble. When you say, I need to talk about something, what they hear is, you messed up again. You disappoint me. When you say, can we figure this out together? And here's the thing, they hear, well, you can't handle things on your own. And here's the key thing that I need you to understand. They're not choosing to hear it that way, you guys. Their nervous system is filling in the blanks based off of what they learned as a child, and not what you're actually saying now. So when that reaction, it gets directed towards you, it feels incredibly personal, because suddenly you're being treated as if you're attacking, criticizing, or shaming, even when you're not. And that's when you start doubting yourself. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I should have just worded it differently. Maybe he should be married to someone else who doesn't bring these type of things up. But here's the truth I want you to hear clearly. You didn't cause the trigger. You stepped into a moment after his nervous system had already decided something was wrong. Your curiosity didn't create danger. Your question didn't equal criticism. Your needs didn't mean rejection. But when someone grew up in an environment where safety depended on being perfect, quiet, or invisible, even these neutral moments can feel really, really threatening. And suddenly, you become the stand-in for a much older story. And that is why I keep coming back to this. It's not you, and it's not him. It's about what happened to him. That doesn't mean your experience doesn't matter, and it doesn't mean you should accept being hurt, but it does mean you can stop carrying guilt and blame that were never yours. Because when you stop questioning yourself, you gain something incredibly important, your clarity. And clarity is what makes the next steps possible. This is where I want to connect everything back to the body, because until this part makes sense, triggers will always feel confusing and personal. Our nervous system have one primary job, and it is to keep us alive. When the body senses danger, it doesn't stop to analyze. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't wait for clarification. It reacts. And there are three primary survival responses: fight, flight, and freeze. And when someone grew up in an environment that felt unsafe, emotionally or physically, their body learned which one of those responses worked best. Some learned to fight, to get loud, to push back, to regain control. Some learned to flee, to shut down, to withdraw, to disappear emotionally. And some learned to freeze, to go quiet, to go numb, and to stay invisible. None of these responses are chosen. They're learned. And once the body learns them, it doesn't forget. So when your spouse is triggered, what you're often seeing is not a decision, it's an instinct. The body thinks there's a bear, but here's the part that really matters. Sometimes it's not a bear. It's a stump that looks like a bear, a question that looks like criticism, a request that looks like failure, a moment of uncertainty that looks like danger, but the nervous system doesn't know that yet. It reacts first. And that's why things escalate so quickly. One moment you're talking about something practical. The next you're dealing with anger, shutdown, or defensiveness because the body saw something that resembled danger and responded accordingly. And here's the most important shift that you can make in real time. The goal isn't to prove that it's a stump in the moment. The goal is to pause, because the pause is what creates enough space for both nervous systems to ask a different question. Instead of reacting automatically, the pause allows both of you to internally ask, is this really a bear, or is this a stump that looks like a bear? That pause doesn't mean ignoring the issue. It doesn't mean stuffing your feelings. And it doesn't mean letting things slide forever. It simply means you're choosing not to respond from survival. Because when someone is in fight, flight, or freeze, they do not have access to curiosity. They do not have access to nuance. They do not have access to empathy or problem solving. All that lives in the part of the brain that comes back after safety is restored. So if you've ever tried to explain yourself in the middle of a triggered moment, which if you're here, I know you have, it sometimes only makes things worse. And this is why that is happening. You were speaking to logic, and the body was responding to threat. That pause is what gives the body time to realize, oh, this isn't actually a bear. And once that realization happens, everything changes. Not instantly, not perfectly, but enough. Enough for regulation, enough for choice, enough for connection to become possible again. That doesn't mean that you're responsible for calming him down, but it does mean you can stop chasing resolution in the middle of a thunderstorm, because now you know it isn't a character flaw. It isn't manipulation, and it isn't about you being inadequate. It's a nervous system responding to a stump that looked like a bear to him. Okay, if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm starting to understand what's happening now, but what do I do when it's happening? This part is for you.
Banging your head against the wall, trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it, the more discouraged you feel. So what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together. I also needed to start to figure out how I could disrupt the pattern.
Mm-hmm. And what did you?
And one of my biggest recommendations is the pause.
The pause.
In the moment.
Yep.
And I started realizing that, but I am pausing. I was like, but I am pausing. I would read it and says, yeah, I get that. I am pausing, but I started to realize what I was pausing, what maybe just a little bit too late.
Interesting.
And things had already started going down that bad road, right?
Yep.
So I loved what you said about noticing your body first.
Yes. I'll be out in Colorado next week giving a keynote, and the title of it is The Powerful Pause, right?
Yes.
That will transform your relationships. It's becoming aware of the opportunity to pause just a little bit earlier, right? As soon as you can is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just as soon as you can.
Yeah,
like,
whenever you can.
Yes.
But
start to move that up as much as you can. Honestly, like if I was practicing that yesterday, and this is it for me, it's just it's an ever so subtle quickening, an urgency, and a sense of I got to go faster, and my brain starts to move a little bit faster. And honestly, that's such a reliable indicator that an hour, 2 hours from now, I'm going to be easily triggered. that I need to pay careful attention to that sort of initial sign for me. And I think everyone probably has their own unique sort of fingerprint of arousal where it starts. But to move it as your awareness is close to the beginning of that escalation, I think is important.
Yeah, I found that to be really helpful because when we would be trying to pause after we'd already started going, it was just harder. We could do it, but after some practice, but it is harder. And so I found I wanted to pause earlier to get into my logical part of the brain.
Yep. I remember once, it was Christmas Day. My wife and I had been fighting for about 3 days, I think. And it was a wild moment because she was over here. We were in the bathroom. She was over here, and I was looking in the mirror. There was something about looking in the mirror and seeing myself say things. I was like, I don't even believe what I'm saying anymore. Like, and in the further you get into a conflict cycle like that, the deeper you go into protection mode, the more you got to dig yourself out. Yeah. So if you can sort of catch yourself stepping into it, there's so much more degrees of freedom when it comes to your emotional, flexibility. Yes. To your point.
Is the other thing that I found, so to open the heart, to speaking to that, was me I had little mantras
Ah, yeah.
that I would
Yeah.
tell myself during the pause, right? So I tried to
Yes.
pause and then I had mantras. This isn't about me. This isn't really
Mm,
about him either.
yes. Oh, so good.
This is about the past.
Mm, yes.
I'm curious if that is something that you found that helps.
Yes. I love the idea of a mantra. I think one of the most effective mantras, because we have to actually in that moment retrain our nervous system to know that it's safe now, right?
Yes.
It's stuck in the
Yes.
past. um, I mentioned some research by Bruce Perry, psychiatrist, who explains that your brainstem can't tell time, doesn't have a watch, and that's on purpose because you're supposed
No.
to react to everything that's threatening right away without pausing to go, oh, is this related to that thing that happened in the past? And all
You're right.
that.
Exactly. No, that's not very
Yeah.
good
So,
survival.
so one of the first things a mantra can do is to bring our frontal lobe back online and
Yes.
go, take a look around. The toilet seat is up. And
It's a toilet
just
seat.
say that. She did just say that again. And
Yes.
she didn't say, thanks for everything else you did today. Like, yes,
Exactly.
that's all true, but we are not on the Serengeti and there's no tiger chasing me. Yeah, and so just sort of like bringing the frontal lobe on, using a mantra to remind that nervous system that it is safe. And boy, I mean, you get it. Like the, the step right after recognizing that you have a pain point that's being stirred up is always recognizing that it is not ever entirely about this moment.
No, ever. Hardly
Yeah,
ever. Literally.
hardly ever.
Hmm.
People are really and this is wild. In the what I call the peaceful pivot process that we've been talking about here, I thought recognizing the pain point would be the real place I'd get resistance from people. It's not. It's recognizing the ways your pain point is connected to your past. We're really invested in
Yeah.
going, hey, the past is behind me. I don't need to deal with that. And the way I started out my novel, The Unhiding of Elijah Campbell, the first line of the book is the past is behind us, but it is also always within us, right? We carry the past with us, inside of us, stored in our nervous system. And then in our triggered moments, and this is what I always say, the grace, the blessing of your triggered moments is you don't need to go looking for your past. In your triggered moments, your past is pushing its way into the present. And so you're getting an opportunity to experience what it was like for you at a particular stage of life and getting to know that part of you even better. So, yes, that mantra, this isn't about, don't personalize it. It's not about me. It's
Yeah,
not even
no,
about this
it's
moment.
not about, and yeah. Also add in,
Yeah.
it's not about the toilet. Like,
And it's not about the toilet. Now, if you try to, I like that it's a mantra that you're saying to
me.
yourself
I'm
because in
it's to
that
me.
moment, right?
No, don't say that. Mm-mm.
If your partner's triggered and you say, "Oh, it's not about the toilet, it's about your mom," it's
No,
not
no,
going.
this is
Uh-uh.
internal, people.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Which
Yeah.
goes back to that idea that we're not in that moment jumping back into trying to connect. You're taking a pause
No,
before you do
no.
that. This is about, yeah,
Mm.
a break in relating, not rushing back into relating. So, yeah.
That leads me perfectly to kind of what my third step is
Hmm.
that I think that a lot of times people think, well, you're just telling me to pause
Mm.
and just let it, and then, but then nothing is ever changing.
Nothing ever gets resolved. You hear that a lot. Yep.
Or you're just telling me to throw it under the rug and be okay with it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the important part. That's the other important part is coming back to it.
Coming back to it. And I have to confess, in probably in 21, that first year of my resolution, I spent the first 6 months not knowing how to get untriggered and open my heart. But then I probably spent another 6 months to a year just hanging out in an open heart rather than reconnecting from that. Right.
Yes, I agree.
And my wife, of
Peace
course, is like,
first, don't
yeah,
you think?
yeah,
Peace first.
peace first,
Peace
then
first.
give it another go. And um it I was a little oblivious. My wife was really frustrated. She's like, "Oh, great for you." Like the thing starts to happen between us, and you just go, "Oh, I will walk away and be open-hearted." Like, I don't think that's, the whole deal. And she was right. And so then to then develop the skills in sort of a bank of experiences of coming back together and maintaining that open heart as you reconnect is it's really powerful stuff. So yes, to your point, neither one of us, I don't think, is telling anyone, it's just all you, go chase your inner peace and it'll all be all right. We're here for relationships. We're not here to walk away from each other. We're here to walk with each other. Right. So we have to come back for sure.
Right.
What helps you do
Yeah.
that?
Exactly. What helps you? Well, it's interesting because I'm like the time to reconnect is when neither one of you are triggered anymore,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the biggest pushback I get is what you're telling me that I should bring up a sensitive subject when things are going well. Why would I do that?
Exactly.
And I'm like, I get it, but that's the only time a conversation will go well.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
Yes. And the expectation, understandably, is that it will all go south again.
yeah,
But you're actually getting a rep when your nervous system is regulated and you're being intentional at practicing in a new way, for sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah. I also think an important piece of prepping for that reconnection
Yes. Tell me.
is being clear about what you're doing during during the powerful pause,
I
right?
agree.
Like I remember a time, it was an afternoon, maybe a year into this, when I was really proud of myself for how I'd showed up that day, like really super present as a husband and a father, and and
Yeah.
it's dinner time now, and my wife's making dinner, and I'm sitting at the counter, and this is prior to my launch of my novel, and I have a thought, and I really respect her opinion on all things uh, related to my writing career. So I said to her, I was like, "Hey, can I ask you a question about the launch?" She looks at me, she goes, "Do you ever stop working?" And now what I'm hoping for at this moment is kudos about how present and how much I've not worked. And she actually comes back with the opposite. And I was like, this is where I caught myself early. I mean, that was really
Uh,
triggering. I'm gonna
uh.
go to the other room and take a couple breaths. I'll be right back. Right. I thought I'd be there back before the green beans were done boiling or whatever. It took me 2 days. 2 days
Oh,
to
yep.
get my
There's
nervous
no
system
time limit.
regulated. And there's
There's no
no
time
time limit.
limit. Hmm.
No, there's not. But a lot of times partners are used to us, our people are used to us being punitive with our withdrawal,
Yep.
right? Like it's a
I know.
punishment, it's disconnection. And so that can ironically be escalating things while you're off having your pause. And so that time stands out as a time, it was one of the first times where I was able to like be very intentional about that and say, hey, text her. um, this isn't going as fast as I thought. I don't want to show up again to this conversation until I can show up the way you deserve, and so trust me that I'm working on this, right? And then, like you said, it would be easy after 2 days of that, when your heart's back open, to go, okay, let's just move
Fine
on.
now. Why? I don't think
Yeah,
we need to talk about it
we
anymore,
don't need to
right?
talk about that. But that, I mean, that is really when the relationship takes off, is when you reconvene from with that open heart and have that conversation. Um, so yeah, I think this idea of a pause is really central to so much of that.
To your point about uh, we're coming back to the conversation.
Hmm.
Uh, I loved what you said about it's important to bring in what you've been doing during
Hmm.
the pause. I
Hmm.
love that because one of the entry kind of scripts that I have is so I've been thinking a lot over the last 2 days about
I like that. It's a great entryway.
because it does, you
Yeah.
have been,
Yeah.
both of you are,
Yeah.
right? It's
Exactly.
just that
Yeah.
you never voice it.
Yes. Exactly.
Um, so I love that entry tip. Um,
And the temptation when you're in that pause, because your self protection, that closed heart's going to want to stay focused on the other person, what they could do. It's like picking up a self help book because you really want to, you need the help yourself, and then by page 10, you just realize you're thinking of all the people in your life who really need
yeah,
it.
that need it. Yeah.
Yeah, like so to be able to reconvene and go, I've been thinking a lot about me, yeah, in this way, like
Yes.
what's going on in here, and I want you to know about it. Like, what a great way to kick it off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love these tips. These are real life things, I think,
Well,
that
and I and
people
I I love
can
how
bring in.
like I
Yeah.
love how the two of us, are convening on some, or converging on something rather that um, feels feels real and sort of universal, but through our own stories, sort of coming to it from different angles, but coming to the same place.
Well, I love that too, because so many times I think we're so worried, like, does that work for the other person?
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so having these little tips that seems to work for both sides,
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I love,
yeah. And one of the
right?
things one of the things I learned over the course of that first year of practicing open-heartedness was, well, it sort of culminated, so that was the second year of COVID. We were not sure how Christmas would play out because there was a second wave going around. So we were like, we're just getting out of Dodge, and we went to Mexico. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm a relatively easily triggered traveler. Like if you like your blinds a
Yeah.
certain height at home,
Yeah.
traveling
Indeed.
internationally isn't the most
Travel
fun
is
thing to.
tough.
Yeah. And then, like, I mean, Mexico, there's like machine guns and trucks, and like, we had to pay people to get back into the country with COVID restrictions. We didn't break the law, but like people were sort of extorting us, and it was a crazy trip. And
Oh,
we get home, and it's New Year's Eve now, exactly a year after uh, my New Year's resolution started. And we're sitting with the family, and my wife's like, "Hey, why don't you tell the kids what you've been doing all year? Maybe we'll want to practice that as a family this year." And so I told them, and there was this long pause, and my daughter, I think she's like 13 at the time, she looked at me and she said, "That must be why every time something went wrong on the way to Mexico, I looked at you and I felt calm." I
oh.
was like, "Oh," get emotional just thinking about it. Like, oh my gosh, like
Mm,
that we don't just kind of create the environment for our people. We are the environment,
I
right?
know.
And if we're open hearted and we're calm, then they're getting to live and to grow and to change and to heal in a safe environment, as well. And so that's the exciting thing. I mean, to me, that's the exciting thing to me about this, that people will read this book and not only get to experience the peace that comes from the process, but to become that peace out in the world, so that other people get a leg up on on uh, on opening their own hearts, basically.
Oh, that interview. Oh my goodness. I absolutely loved that interview. I hope you felt it as much as I do. But before we close, I want to bring this back to what I call the real deal, because you can listen to the clips and you can nod along like I was. You can feel seen for a moment, but if you don't leave with something clear, something you can actually carry into your next hard conversation, then nothing will change. So, here are the three biggest takeaways that I want you to walk away with from this entire series. Number one, you're not crazy. You're tired. There's a difference. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive, and you're not imagining the tension. You are navigating two nervous systems, and one of them learned early on that the world was not safe. So, of course, you're tired. But exhaustion does not mean it's hopeless. It means you need tools and support and clarity. So, if part one resonated with you, I want you to go back and listen to it fully. Let yourself really absorb why the exhaustion is making sense. Now, number two, it's not about you, it's not about him, and it's definitely not about the toilet. It's about the past. Small issues aren't small when old wounds get activated. The fight isn't about the dishes or the tone or the timing, it's about shame. It's about fear. It's about protection. And when you can start asking, what just got activated instead of what did I do wrong, everything begins to shift. So if you need more clarity on this, go back to part 2 and get deep into what's actually happening in his body and then yours when things escalate. And number 3, open heart, practical skills, and the powerful pause. This was the heartbeat of my conversation with Dr. Kelly. Having an open heart does not mean being a doormat, and staying compassionate without skills is going to burn you out. So you need both. You need the ability to recognize when the body is getting protective and the courage to pause before you react. Is it a bear or is this a stump that just looks like a bear? That question alone can change the direction of your marriage. So if you haven't watched the full episode with Dr. Kelly, I really want you to do that, because at the end of that episode, we get really honest about how hard this is on you, the wife who's been trying to hold this all together. Now, here's what I want you to remember as you leave this recap. It's not you and it's not him. It's about what happened in the past. But what happens next, that is about both of you. And if this series spoke to you, I don't want you to just stop here. Go back, listen to all 3 episodes, let it sink in, and share it with anybody else that you think could benefit it. Because this isn't about surviving another fight. It's about building something stronger than the patterns that shaped you. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next week.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.